to you for 35 minutes. So please do help. If I do a little bit of audience participation, please do join in. I will appreciate that. And I will make eye contact with some people to try and force that a little bit. I'm doing this in Prezi, okay? How many people have seen Prezi before as a power? Right, so I won't go through it too quick in case you get motion sickness. Okay, I haven't got too many Zooms, so please bear with me. So I am using Prezi, but I'm using the executable version, not the online version, okay? First of all, just a little introduction into who I am. Was that a bit too much for you there? Was it a bit too quick, was it? Sorry, I did try to warn you. I've got some joyrides if anyone should have the motion sickness. My name is Lynda Girvan. I'm a business analyst. I actually feel sometimes when I say that it's like Alcoholics Anonymous. That I'm having to apologise for being a business analyst. In fact, I'm actually very proud to be a business analyst. I'm actually a software engineer by trade. That was my degree, computer science and business computer systems. I did try coding. I wasn't very good at it. I wasn't very good at it because I always like to look under the hood. For me, coding was like looking at the engine of a car. When I look at a car, I like to look at the colour, the aesthetics, you know, whether it's got the mirror when I push down the visor for the sun. Things like that are important to me. It's about the experience, you see. So I was never very good at coding. I did do it for a couple of years and decided this isn't for me. I'm much better about asking about what needs to be built rather than figuring out or whether IT is the right solution. I do work for Assist Knowledge Development. I just say principal consultant. I am an IT trainer and a consultant, so I do help other companies. But my background actually is 25 years in the public sector as a business analyst. Well, probably 15 years as a business analyst, 10 years doing other roles. Other roles have included an Agile coach, mentor, business change lead. I've not always been labelled business analyst, and team lead, technical lead, requirements engineer, the thing goes on. But basically my heart has always been in business analysis. I also work for the Chartered Institute for IT, BCS, where I help them with the certification scheme for business analysis, and I do the examinations for people to get a diploma in business analysis. So my heart is very much in business analysis. Saying that, I don't always believe that business analysts are the solution to everything. However, I do believe that business analysis is the solution for a lot of things, okay? So I don't mind if you don't have business analysts as long as business analysis is done. And that's what I'm really going to hopefully talk to you about as we go through. First of all, how many of you would consider yourselves to be a business analyst? Okay, that's more than I actually thought. That's great. How many of you are coders or developers? None. A couple of you in this. Oh, thank you. Welcome to this track. How many of you would consider yourself managers or product owners or that sort of type of role? Okay, so we've got a real mix in the room. That's quite interesting. I'm going to start off by actually describing or giving you a definition of what a business analyst is or should be. And this has come from the BCS Chartered Institute for IT, and it's how they define business analysis in the wider context. Sorry if this zooms a little bit too quick for you. Is that all right? It probably won't zoom much quicker than that. So what is business analysis? Well, business analysis is defined in these 3 books. They're all written by BCS, they're all written by subject matter experts. And it says it's an advisory role that has responsibility for investigating business situations. Nothing about software in there yet. Identifying and evaluating options for improving a business system. Not an IT system, a business system. Elaborating and defining requirements and ensuring the effective implementation and use of information systems in line with the needs of the business. So it's very much about ensuring that any IT system is aligned, but it's not just about understanding IT, it's about understanding business need. It's more holistic than just IT. I get a lot of the time people saying to me, why do we need business analysts when we're using Scrum? Well, somebody's got to be doing some business analysis, otherwise you won't have a successful product. You might not label it that. Somebody needs those skills somewhere down the line. It's really important. So I'm going to give you a few run-throughs in a minute. I've got a product backlog that you probably saw before I started, of things where I think it can demonstrate where business analysts can add value in Agile development. And also a little bit of how business analysts themselves can be a little bit more agile themselves and apply some of the Agile techniques in the wider business context. Business analysis is not just about IT systems, it's a holistic view of the business. A business contains more than IT. I know developers and a lot of people working in project teams probably can't see past further than the IT systems that they're developing. But believe it or not, within a business system, there are people. Lots of people sometimes. Those people have defined processes. Those processes may or may not involve IT. Also, there's another massive constraint within an organisation which affects how effective IT can be. And that's organisational constraints and structures. Do you know those policies? All of those things, the people that make the decisions, the structures that impose egos, and actually can constrain collaboration often. All of these things are really important within a business system, and these are the things that business analysts care about. So business analysis is about doing the right thing and doing the thing right. Now that's the same principle that underpins Agile. You talk about it a lot within agility and in Agile projects. Business analysis is for the business, not just for requirements. That's thing number one. Business analysts aren't there just to go and get requirements. They're for the business. It's a bit like business analysts aren't just for Christmas. They're not just for the IT, they're for the business. It's really important to remember that. That's what they represent, the business. Business analysis is ensuring that business value is obtained. Now that's a core principle behind Agile, isn't it? Every product that's going out, every IT system, every iteration, every sprint, every deliverable is trying to deliver some value of some kind. Well, business analysis is all about ensuring that value is delivered to the customer. So working with a business analyst can help. Business analysis is actually a holistic view of the business. Okay, so hopefully I've dispelled any myths there that business analysts just do requirements. Okay, they don't just do requirements. So how does business analysis actually support Agile development? Well, who works out that IT is the right solution? I can't tell you how many times I've worked on projects where I consider this magpie management theory. This is where the manager said, we have a business problem, we must need a new IT system. How many people have worked on a project where somebody's decided, before any analysis has ever been done, that IT is going to be the solution? A few of you are brave enough to put your hands up. And how many times has that been truly successful? Right, none of you put your hands up, okay? I call it magpie management. I once read this article, I wish it was me that wrote this article, it wasn't. I read it on the internet about a guy who ran a logistics company. And in this company, he was playing golf with somebody, and they sold him this scanning system, a barcode scanning system. And he went, that's great, that's what my company needs. If I've got a barcode scanning system, we won't need all these people working in the logistics. I will save money. Okay, he was sold on the technology. But he needed to put some requirements together in order to get the barcode people to deliver the system for him. They needed to know his requirements. So he thought, well, I haven't got anyone to do that, I'll bring in a business analyst. And this business analyst came in, and he took a look at their system. He said, right, I'll have a look at it. 50% of their boxes never had barcodes. Okay, number one. Of the other 50% of the boxes that had barcodes, the barcodes were on boxes that were inside boxes. So they had to unpack the boxes, scan them, put them back in. The business analyst actually worked out they need 3 more staff if they implemented the barcode scanning system. So for me, this is about business. This is about thinking about cost-benefit analysis. It's thinking holistically about the business. Now, it's very easy for a manager just to make a decision and say, we're going to have this IT system. But it's really important. Sometimes you get a business analyst involved, you get a different perspective because they're looking at the value. They're looking at it from a different point of view. When these business cases get written, right, nearly every project that gets started up has got some business case or business charter or terms of reference of some kind. Who does all the analysis for that? Where does all that analysis come from that goes into the business case? Project managers? Right, project manager. And how well equipped are project managers at analysing information? Well, some of them are really, really good, don't get me wrong, but a lot of them aren't trained or skilled in these processes. They just do it, this is a standard tool, they just acquire this knowledge as they go, and they're okay with it. I've worked with lots of project managers and produced, much better business cases with options, with lots of analysis. And often, again, with the business cases, the project managers still seem to go down a technical route. They don't often assume that there could be another way of delivering the solution or a solution without involving IT. So you start to move yourself down an IT route all the time. So business analysis is quite key in there as well. This is another one, right? In Scrum. You look at Scrum, and you look at the Scrum, you know, the outline of Scrum, it starts with a backlog. Where does that come from? Where does the initial backlog come from? Does some requirement fairy just turn up and go poof, and this beautifully prioritised backlog appears, which has been agreed by everyone and confirmed, and everyone's happy with what's in it? Actually, getting that first backlog is really, really difficult. Somebody somewhere is doing business analysis. They might not be called a business analyst, but they are doing business analysis. Now, there are more things in there than I could put on this slide, and I didn't want to bombard you with too much, so if you want to talk about this after, feel free to come and have a chat with me. I could come up with another 50 reasons why business analysis can support agile development. This is my backlog. When I wrote this presentation, I did it for the Agile North conference in June, and that was an hour long. And how are we doing? I'm already 15 minutes in, so I've got half an hour left. I doubt we're going to get through all of this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the first one on my backlog, and I'm going to get you to prioritise the rest. And if we run out of time, we run out of time, okay? We'll just do it with a show of hands. I'm going to try and be a little bit agile about this because I didn't want to rewrite my presentation, and you might decide there's something in there you like that you want to do. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is consider the whole, okay? And hopefully bring some of my own experience in here about how being an Agile BA has helped projects. So it's really important to consider the whole thing when you're looking at a business system. Sorry if that's zooming too much, it's a bit quick. IT is not the complete system, okay? IT is one part of a system. A system contains business processes. Okay, business processes interact with the IT system. That's how people operate business processes. Sometimes you can automate some of these processes, but they're still business processes. There are always policies that need to be adhered to and stuck to within a business system. These things, a lot of detail involved in all of these things. You know, they don't just arrive at your desk and go, well, that's really easy to understand. You've got to go and find them, haven't you, policies? There are also things that get left till last as well, aren't they? They're that impediment that stops you delivering your sprints, that policy that you never quite understood. Legal constraints. Most businesses have legal constraints they've got to consider. These are all part of your business system. Organisational structure is part of the business system, and this one is probably the most important. People. People are a big part of the business system, and often overlooked, which really surprises me with how people overlook people in the business system. So when you're looking at delivering an IT system, you need to consider all of those things. When I look at processes like Scrum, and I'm a big advocate for Scrum, I like Scrum, Scrum doesn't seem to focus on all of these things. It seems to start with a product backlog, which considers that somebody must have considered it somewhere, otherwise his backlog wouldn't have arrived beautifully formed and prioritised. So somebody needs to be thinking about these things somewhere along the line, otherwise your system is going to be, you're going to trip up later on down the line. And you can deliver to a perfect specification, you can follow Scrum beautifully, and you can have the best process in the world, but if nobody wanted that system when it's delivered, it's still crap, isn't it? You know, it really is. Nobody wants it, it's no good. So Agile, when we talk about Agile, when most people talk about Agile, they focus on software development. And that's because businesses think about why they want Agile. They say we want to be Agile because we can't now afford long delivery times. Nobody's prepared to wait a year for an IT system to be delivered. We want to be Agile because businesses are more complex. Businesses are more complex and have more reliance now on IT systems to deliver the value that they deliver. Commercial pressures, actually, and reaching competitive advantage means there are economic pressures as to why people want to be agile. And customers now are more demanding. But what amazes me is that we still talk about all of those things in the context of software development, but we don't talk about it in the context of agile or business agility. Because those things all stand true, don't they, within business, not just software. yet I don't see many people talking about those things in the business context. Let's have a little look at the Agile Manifesto. Everyone seen the Agile Manifesto? There's nobody in the room that hasn't seen it. When we look at the Agile Manifesto, it makes sense. It's saying the things on the right we value more than we value these things on the left, more than things on the right. Freudian slip. However, if I did this, and I took out working software, and I replaced that with deliver value to customer, where is there anything in there now which says anything about IT or software? I could apply that to any business situation. Those values could apply to any business situation. So for instance, if you're how many people have HR departments in your organisation, right? If I took out this customer collaboration over contract negotiation, can you think of instances with your HR department that you think, yeah, they could do that a little bit better using that value? I think this is delivering value to the customer over comprehensive documentation. HR department seems to produce the most documentation than anyone I've ever seen. Okay, it's phenomenal, isn't it? So anyone can apply these values if you just take out working software and put deliver value to customer. This has got nothing to do with IT. Okay, these principles can be applied much more widely in business, and I have applied these principles in business, these values. One of the ways that business analysts can do this is using something called Porter's Value Chain. How many people have heard of Porter's Value Chain? Just a couple of you in the room. This is a really good tool that was written by somebody called Michael Porter back in the, I think it's probably in the 70s or 80s. And what he says here is that every organisation, and this stands true today, every organisation has a set of primary activities and they have a set of secondary activities. Now, if I was making cars, my inbound logistics would be all my car parts, okay? And then my operations would be making the car, my outbound logistics would be how I delivered the cars to the people that are selling them, and then you have marketing and sales, and you have service. Service, how do you manage your service? These are primary activities to delivering the optimum profit margin. But also, alongside that, you have to have secondary activities to support the primary activities. And those things are things like procurement, because procurement's really agile, isn't it? Yeah? Like procurement, technology development. IT is actually, for most, unless your primary service is delivering IT, is a secondary activity within an organisation. It supports the activities of the organisation. HR and firm infrastructure. Why I think this is important is because if you make one change in any of those boxes, what does it affect? How does it impact on those other areas? It's a bit like a balloon. If I got a balloon and I squeezed it to make the bottom half smaller, what happens to the top half? It gets bigger, doesn't it? Right? And I saw a classic example of this I talk about human resources in the department I worked, in the government department I worked for nearly 25 years. We underwent HR transformation. Yeah? Got a great consultancy firm in. I'm titled consultant now, so I'm not going to say anything about consultants. Fantastic opportunity for them. HR transformation. Let's transform the HR department. What do you think the goals were of transforming the HR department?
Save money.
Right, let's save money. Let's save money by having less people. Right? So what we'll do is we'll make everybody in the organisation book their rooms, do online PPRs. They even automated, get this, I thought this is classic, they even automated the resignation process. Look, worse than that, right, because I actually did resign. They automated the resignation process. And it was a drop-down list. I never even got to speak to a person, right, when I left. And on the drop-down list it said reasons why you want to leave. I couldn't even input my own, I had to choose from a drop-down list. Right? And one of them on there was I don't feel valued by the organisation. Does nobody see the irony in this? This is transformation, right? Now for me as a business analyst, I'm thinking, I was so astounded by how appalling this process was and other processes that I actually emailed the director of our organisation. This is quite a big organisation. Luckily I used to work for him, so he did know me. I had a massive rant, and I don't know whether he's done anything about it, probably not, but I got it off my chest and I resigned feeling quite content about what I say. The point is, Porter's Value Chain is a really valuable tool that business analysts are trained in and use. Okay, and this is where you can add value by looking at the impact of what you're doing in the organisation. Other tools that business analysts have available to them that they can use in this context are things like Agile modelling. Things like, business activity models that come from soft systems methodology. Who's familiar with soft systems methodology? Anyone heard of a CATWO? Right, these are fantastic tools. I'm not going to brief you on them now. You should look them up. And if you think you ought to be doing business analysis, even if you're not titled a business analyst, you need to know about these tools and need to be able to utilise them. A business activity model is about how you transform your business, how you transform the doing activities of your business. It's an amazing tool. I'm a massive fan of use cases. I'm also a big fan of user stories. I don't see why they can't live side by side. And also when I talk about Agile modelling, I don't mean I go away in a corner, I develop a model and go, this is the solution. To me, Agile modelling is just in time. It applies all the Agile principles. And I actually do it in collaboration with not just the developers, but the end users. To me, modelling is a tool for collaboration. It's not something you do in a room on your own. If you do modelling in a room on your own, you've missed the point, as far as I'm concerned, in an Agile context. Okay, and you do it just in time. You don't do it 6 months ahead. It's going to change. There's no point. The amount of time I've seen people trying to manage models, these meta models and all these models, and they're trying to keep them up to date. Why? If nobody's looking at them, just don't do it until later. Do it when it's needed and do it just in time and just enough. That's a really important point in modelling. Another thing, process modelling is really important as well. This is another tool. Business analysts are trained in all of these models. Okay? This is an important tool. This one here, systems thinking. Who's familiar with systems thinking? Systems thinking underpins Agile. It comes from Deming. Deming underpins Motorola and lean manufacturing. It's management think. It's management thinking. All of these things it's saying, systems thinking is saying that, Kaizen, Kanban, all of these things are underpinned by systems thinking. Business analysts are trained in systems thinking. It's understanding that a system has a set of interrelated parts that work together. And if you change one part, it affects the other. How many times have you implemented an IT system and you've got unwanted side effects? That's because you haven't considered the interrelating parts. This is where business analyst comes into place. Right, that's my first backlog item now. We're down to about 10 minutes. I've got decomposed goals, not functions. Software processes don't kill projects, people do. The devil's in the detail, and look beyond the product expert. I'm going to go through those very quickly. I'm going to do a show of hands of which one you want me to do. Decompose goals, not functions. That's about functional decomposition. Anybody interested in that one? Yeah. Just a couple, right? Software processes don't kill projects, people do. Quite a few on that one. Devil's in the detail. Look beyond the product owner and experts. Okay, I'm going to do software processes don't kill projects, people do first. This is my way of being agile. Okay, I talked about people in a business system, really, really important. Interactions and individuals over processes and tools, yet people say agile is a silver bullet. How many times have you heard people say, I'm being agile or I do agile because we're following Scrum? Okay, following a process alone, just blindly following an agile process does not make you agile. That's just one part of being agile. Agile is about the principles and values and about adhering to them, along with the methods which help you keep aligned to the principles and values, and then on top of that, loads of tools and techniques. But I hear people say, we do daily stand-ups, we're being agile. But they've no idea about the principles and values. In every project I've worked that's failed, it's people. And one of the other things I'm really tired of hearing is people say, oh, RUP didn't work for us, RUP is rubbish, right? I use RUP quite a lot, Rational Unified Process, perfectly agile, okay? People don't talk about it because it doesn't have agile word in it, it's perfectly agile. Scrum, oh, we tried Scrum, doesn't work for us, doesn't work. These processes work. Waterfall works, okay? Waterfall will work in some projects, okay? Agile, RUP will work, Scrum will work. What makes them fail is people. I'm going to give you some examples here. Anyone heard of the universal credit failure for the Department of Work and Pensions? Anybody involved in it? Right, good. Reason it failed. Cabinet Office decided they were going to adopt Agile. They told them they were going to adopt Agile. Does that build trust and empower people? Right, so you've lost trust and empowerment straight away. The contracts were already let before they decided they were going to go agile. What can happen when you've got contracts that are fixed price under a waterfall type approach and you're trying to work in an agile way? Right? It does not work, does not compute. Because what you end up doing is putting a person contracted into a situation under a certain role and then asking them to do something different. And they go, not in my contract, mate. Not in there, can't do that. So procurement becomes, something which stops them being agile. The procurement strategy was wrong. They didn't understand the change that they needed to move to agile. How many people have adopted agile in your organisation? How easy was that transition? Right? Because I lived through a transition from a rational unified process to Scrum and more agile practices myself, and actually at the time I was an agile coach, so I really felt it. But people don't realise that moving to agile is business transformation. Right? It's business transformation, it's about people. You need to get people on board. It's the people that make the projects fail, not the process. It's not the process that goes wrong. In this situation, it was all about the people. Also, you have got Ian Duncan Smith, which was actually the politician that was behind this at the time. It doesn't look good in his ballot box if they're going to deliver in 3 years when he's not in that seat anymore. He wants something quick. Of course he was going to support Agile. He thought if he could get quick deliverables, it would look good in his ballot box. So all of these things are conflicting about why Agile's important, and it was the people that let that down. Here's another one. Terminal 5. Terminal 5 was a great example. I don't know if they used Agile, but it was a good example of where people make processes fail. And what happened is the IT system worked perfectly. What had happened, they actually hadn't tested the baggage clerk. So they'd done all these different testings of different parts of the process, and then they all turned up on day one, and the first thing that happened is the people that turned up for work didn't know where to park. Right. When they got into the building, the security wouldn't let them through. When they got into the building, they had no maps, they didn't know where to go. And when the people got to the baggage handling system, it was booted up fine, they just didn't know how to use it. So what was happening is all these bags were going through, it worked perfectly. They had the customer come in and test their bag and put it on the conveyor belt and off it went down the back. What they didn't test was what the baggage handlers did with it. They didn't do end-to-end. They didn't look holistically at the business process. They looked at a tiny portion of the business process. If I'd have been a business analyst in there, I'd have tested one person, one bag, on one plane, flying off. Right? Not with one bag going through to the baggage handling system. That's half a job, isn't it? You've got to do the whole end-to-end thread. And that's what we say about slicing up user stories, about making sure you do all of those things. And that was, in fact, with terminals, was it the other terminal that they opened after that? Terminal 2. They actually limited it to 34 flights, and I wondered if it had anything to do with 34 flights getting cancelled. Business analysts can help because they have a holistic view, and they look at it through a business lens. They're always focused on the business and the business lens. As a business analyst, I actually helped with the change and the Agile adoption. Because business transformation, Agile is business transformation. Adopting Agile is a business transformation. And you need people that can help you with that adoption. So BAs can also help with Agile adoption. It is a change project in its own right. What was the next one we were going to look at? We had to show our hands with software. Decompose goals, not functions. Was that it?
Devil's in the detail.
Oh, devil's in the detail.
That was a lease.
All right, come on. Who wants devil's in the detail? Right, who wants decompose goals, not functions? Oh, that's a close one. Right, we'll do. I'll see if I've got time. Decompose goals, not functions. This is one of the things I've seen go wrong with a lot of projects. Is that people, and actually developers, and apologise you guys, you might not do this, great if you don't, is somebody says this is what we've got to do, here's the user story, and they go straight in and they go function, 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 function. Right, we need a user interface, we need some back end, we need some middleware, and they decompose it into tasks too early. And that's why, this is where things go wrong. Oh, apologies. Hopefully that works now. People gravitate towards functional decomposition because it's natural. Okay, it's a natural way to break things down is functional decomposition. The problem is that the benefit can only be delivered once all the functional tasks are complete. So if you break it down into 10 functions, you've got to complete all 10 functions before any value can be delivered. If you break it down by goal, you might deliver some value, only a little bit of that, and it might create 3 or 4 functional tasks. And let me give you an example of this. Actually, somebody earlier in this track was talking about making a cup of tea, and I was laughing because it's actually... So here's an example of a functional decomposition of making a cup of tea. So we're going to serve hot drinks. I'm going to boil water. I might do it in a kettle. I might fill the kettle, boil the kettle. I need to prepare the cups, add ingredients to cups, add hot water, stir and serve. I need to obtain ingredients, coffee, tea, hot chocolate, milk and sugar. Very simple. You break it down. These are all the tasks I need to do. Okay, it's very task-oriented. You need to do this, but if you do this too early, you can't deliver early benefit, is the problem. In comparison, let's look at this. This is goal decomposition. Let's say the goal is to serve a hot drink. And to serve a hot drink, we can serve tea, serve hot chocolate, or serve coffee. We could serve tea with tea bags. So by only doing a small slice of it, I could serve a hot drink, but I'll only serve tea with tea bags. Then as I grow and I get a bit more business and maybe I get a little bit of money in, I might start serving hot chocolate or serving coffee. And eventually, as your business grows, you add more functionality and you do more and more, and you grow the business value. The point is I can deliver early value by just delivering tea with a tea bag. And you're still having to do the tasks, but by focusing on the goal and breaking down the goals early enough means you've got more chance of being successful in delivering earlier value than if you break the functional task down too early and then you've got to do them all and then time goes on and it's 3 months and you still haven't delivered any value. Now I find this with user stories a lot. It's people, I have an example, I said to somebody, book a course, break that user story down, book a course. And they struggle with it and they're saying, what do you mean break it down? It doesn't need to be broken down anymore. I said break it down, it can be broken down into smaller. This is what we talk about the MVF, isn't it? Minimal viable function. How can you break it down further? Well, to break it down further, you could book one course for one person. That gives you some functionality. It tests the architecture, it tests certain things, you can get some delivery out of it. You might then book one course for 2 people. You might then book multiple people on multiple courses. Then you can start thinking about whether they're going to, what payment options. Book one course for one person that will pay with Visa. But you start adding and growing this function, but you start with the smallest slice. And I find that business analysts are really, really good at doing this. And I find developers really struggle with it because they want to get straight into the tasks. Yeah? And I remember working with one of the teams I was coaching, and they actually had me in their workshop and they couldn't get through. And I kept saying, look, stop thinking about taking data in, transforming the data and outputting it. Take one line of data, and then make it, transform it, and then output it. Then take 10 lines of data, then take a data set, then feed an automated data set in, then work out the interface with the database. And it was about growing this functionality. And they were like, oh, I've really never thought of it like that. And it's about thinking about that MVF. It's really, really important. Business analysts are really, really good at that. So decompose goals, not functions, is really, really important. When you look at it on a project scale, each iteration or each sprint has its own goal, should have its own goal, shouldn't it? With a set of goals, values in there. Each release should have a goal, each project should have a goal. And actually, if you break it down like this, and your business case has a project goal, if you think about it all in goals, you're always going to be focused on delivering value. And if you're focused on delivering value and you're focused on the goals, you can deliver early value. It's all about focusing on goals and breaking down goals. Sometimes the goals are already set, you see. I come from a public sector background where I've worked on very large projects using Prince2, program structures, all of these things, and I know that probably some of you work in very small organisations where the goals probably don't need to be broken down. Maybe you're growing your goals in the other direction. But for some big organisations, this is the way you need to think about decomposing the goals down so that value can be delivered and you keep on track. And that doesn't mean you need to understand the goals all up front either. This isn't we're going to lay out all our goals. These goals could change. And you can move the goalpost. It's about focusing on the goal that's in your in sight And that, really, that just goes back to these, thinking of it in this way. I use use cases. I would start with a use case diagram. I would sketch it. I wouldn't even put it in a tool. I'd take a picture of it. I do not bother with case tools when it comes to use case diagrams. I would prioritise a use case and say, which one's going to give us the biggest bang for buck in terms of delivering some functionality. I would take one use case. That would be the goal for the first couple of sprints or even for a first release. And then I break that down into user stories. And then I break the user stories down into scenarios. So you can use, thank you. So you can use all of these different techniques. You don't have to just stick with user stories and nothing else. And I think I see so many projects that go wrong because people go straight into functional decomposition way too early and they completely lose sight of the value that they're trying to deliver because all they're thinking about now is functions. One of the training courses I deliver is solutions development with Agile. And I was working with a product team who told me they were completely Agile. We're really Agile, we're great. No, see, our problem isn't what we do. We work Scrum, we're really Agile. We're the .NET coders. We just use the UX stuff. That's what we're focusing on. Our problem is the database people. And I'm like, well, why aren't they in your team? Oh, a different team. And you see, this is functional decomposition of teams, isn't it?
Conway's law.
Sorry?
Conway's law.
What was that?
Conway's law.
Is it?
Yeah.
And you end up with this database team, this UX team, and there's no wonder they can't be agile, because it's a them and us situation then, isn't it? It's stovepiping all of these things. And this all starts with this theory. If you need, and this is what I say about business analysis. I don't care what people call business analysis or who's doing it. What you need is the team with the right skill sets. You need the right set of skills in the team to deliver the value that you need to deliver early benefit. And some of the skills that I possess and that BAs possess are needed within and before Agile development begins. And that's it, really, at the end of the day. I don't care who does it, as long as it gets done. Sorry, I'm whizzing through this. Just close your eyes. So business analysts can help because BAs can stay focused on delivering the right thing. They can keep you aligned with the business goals. BAs are very good at decomposing business goals as well, and that's really key, and I find BAs are very good at keeping that on track. Keeping goals aligned to project goals and strategy. What can happen sometimes in iterations, the developers get really good ideas, and then they start coding and they forget to speak to people, and you end up delivering something over here which wasn't actually meeting the goal. Or worse still, and this all comes on to one of my latest ones, is they have a great conversation with a couple of end users, and the end users decide that it needs to be done differently. Yeah? Are the end users paying for it? Okay? Are the end users actually paying for the system? So sometimes in big organisations, it's the product owner that needs to make decisions, not the end users. It's like my daughter wants her bedroom decorated. Yeah? Now that's great, but she's not going to choose everything she wants because I'm the one paying for it, aren't I, at the end of the day? She might be the user. She's going to use the bedroom. It's going to be her bedroom. She's only 8, by the way, so everything's pink. But the point is, I'm not going to let her choose that beautiful, £1,000 wardrobe when an MDF £150 one from IKEA will do. Okay? Because it's my money. And sometimes developers need to consider those things as well in there. So keeping these project goals aligned and keeping them honest sometimes is the role of the BA. And use Agile models to focus the goals as well. BAs can use Agile models, can be Agile in their modelling. It's not about using case tools and making all the models perfect and look beautiful that nobody uses. Right, so we go into devils in the detail. That was next on the list, I hope this works now. Right, the devil's in the detail. How many times have you actually put your Kanban board or Agile board up? You get your user stories in there, you break down the tasks and then realise you haven't got enough information. Nobody. Right, so you've always got enough information, have you? Right, right. I know it's the end of the day, but look a little bit lively. There's always more information that's needed, isn't there? And that actually requires collaboration. So BAs can actually do some of that if they're working within the Agile team. If they are part of the Agile team, They can work with the developers, they can set up the meetings, they can facilitate the meetings to aid the collaboration. They don't need to do it on behalf of the developer, because I think the developers need to be in that room, right? I don't think they need to do it on their own and they go and tell the developers what to do, but they can facilitate it. They're great facilitators. Believe it or not, most business analysts go into business analysis because they actually quite like working with people. You know, they quite like people. I did find one BA who didn't like working with people. Terrible BA. So some of the things, is process sequences. When you're looking at a process and you need to know what sequence, BAs are quite good at looking at the process sequence, facilitating workshops to get that detail of the process sequence. You know, the developers can be involved, they can come to the meetings, but they don't need to spend all the time setting it up, facilitating it. BAs can add a lot of value there. Business rules. Business rules are really the devil in the detail, aren't they? I once was asked to do some business analysis on a project where they were going to automate, this goes against the grain for me, they were going to automate a part of the business process where value was being added. That means people were actually thinking about what they were doing and adding value, and I said I wouldn't do it because it was useless. I said there's no point automating a part of a business process where people are actually adding value. Automate the bits where people don't add value and then look at that bit last. They decided to do it, I wouldn't do it, they got a contract business analyst to do it. 3 months later, this lady is still writing business rules for this automated process. 3 months. Can you imagine what hell it must have been for her, spending 3 months writing business rules of a human process, right? Guess how long that system lasted in production? It cost millions of pounds, it lasted 2 weeks. It lasted 2 weeks because the data that the business rules were based on, the data kept changing. I knew that. They wouldn't listen to me. Okay, so I wouldn't do it. This poor contract woman had to do it. The system was implemented for 2 weeks until they said it was too unwieldy. It cost them more effort to maintain it than it was for the people to do that part of the process in the first place. Okay, so that's an interesting one. So business rules are really interesting and why you should code them in the first place as well. Data requirements. Data requirements is about the relationship between bits of data and information. You know, when does data become information? When is information data? How does that data interrelate with each other? And actually, when if you've got an existing database or back-end that you're going to reuse, that's fine. But sometimes you've got new data that you've got to store, you've got to do things with it, and actually data has a set of rules on its own. Just being able to model the data requirements using things like class diagrams is something that's time-consuming and something the BA can do within the context of the Agile team. Be a part of the Agile team and do those things. Tacit knowledge. Everyone know what I mean by tacit knowledge? Yeah, you do. Some people. Anybody not know what I mean by tacit knowledge? Okay, tacit knowledge is really interesting. If I was going to ask you, how do you make a cup of tea?
Get the cup and
Get
fill
the
it up with
cup,
hot water and a tea
fill it
bag.
with hot water. Fill what with hot water?
Mug
What's water? Where do you get the water from?
from the tap.
From the tap. What's a tap? So the point I'm making is, I know what you're saying because I know how to make a cup of tea, but if I was from out of Mongolia and I didn't have a tap and I didn't have a kettle, then those things wouldn't be obvious to me. And in business we adopt jargon, don't we? We adopt and we assume a level of knowledge and understanding about what we're saying, and this can cause problems. And there are different techniques that you need to actually pull out tacit knowledge, if you like, the things that people know about but don't think to tell you. Okay, and it always happens in business. These will trip you up later down the line, won't they? When you're doing your coding in your Agile teams, these are things that will trip you up because you think, I didn't know what that was. Business analysts are really good, have a whole set of techniques that we teach them on the BA diploma of how to bring out tacit knowledge. It includes things like observation, shadowing. Those sorts of things can bring out tacit knowledge. There's lots of different ways of getting this information, but some of this can be got early, before the iteration even starts. This is why business analysts can add so much value to the Agile teams. So some of the techniques, again, that they use will be storyboarding even. By doing some storyboarding, if you've got a UX designer, great. A UX designer can do it. That's fine. Sometimes you don't have that luxury. BAs can work with UX designers to do things like storyboarding, just very simple paper-based storyboarding. Activity diagrams and things like that can bring out some of those business rules and understand sequencing. Some of the elicitation techniques that the BAs are trained in, shadowing, observation. right? Actually sitting down and observing the way people work, the processes, how they interact with the IT. Questionnaires, that's a skill in its own right, actually doing a questionnaire. Document analysis, looking, and that means not just looking at documents and reports, but looking at screenshots of previous systems that they use, or when they've got that little cottage industry thing that they're doing in the background that they don't tell you about, studying that and understanding the rules around that. And things like looking at activity sampling. Activity sampling is looking how often processes occur. If the HR department had done this, for resignations by the way, they'd have realised that only 2 people resigned from the department on average per week. Or it's quite large, it's 5,000 odd employees. No, 2 people per month resigned from the department. It cost them more to implement the automated resignation process than it would have done. And activity sampling would have highlighted that, and then they wouldn't have needed to implement it. And actually, I'd have probably walked away a happier employee because I'd have felt more valued by having some human contact. So that's the BA, how BAs use that. Have we got time?
You've got time for whatever you want or some questions.
I think we'll just skip the look behind the product owner. And we'll just go straight to the last slide. If anyone wants, this slide is in there. I'm not going to go too fast. Close your eyes because I will flick through. And this is saying it's great to have all these product owners and experts, but although they are represented, how many people have subject matter experts who are the best people in the organisation? Usually, right? What about the other 3,000 odd people that have got to use the system? I had an experience once where the subject matter experts were so good that they built such a good system that the other 3,000 users couldn't use it. Okay? So look, sometimes you need to look beyond and look at the other end users. I will have to whip through these. So my last slide then in summary is BAs help put the BA into backlog, because some people might have a lot of these skills. The skills of being a professional BA, and business analysis has been around for well over 10 years now, is that they hone those skills. It's not about domain knowledge, right? BAs assume and accrue business knowledge from doing their job. Okay, so that's not their major skill. It's about knowing which tools and techniques to apply from their toolkit in which situation, and they may work on business improvement, they may work in IT projects, and that's where business analysis adds a lot of value. Now I know there are some product owners that would do some of these things as well, and that's great. But business analysis focuses on these tools and techniques and applying them time after time again and again on different projects and getting a lot of success from doing it. They're very good at, often business analysts are very good at focusing on people interactions and working with people. And we have the time to actually apply and refine these skills, because that's our job, is to apply and refine these skills. And picking the main ones. And remember that business analysis isn't just for Christmas, not just for IT, it's actually for the business as well. It's looking at business improvement. So it doesn't matter if you don't have BAs, as long as business analysis is being done, as long as there is business analysis. And that's it from me. Are there any questions?
I'm sure there's a lot of questions. Okay, any questions?
Yeah, some of those techniques you were describing to use various modelling techniques, etc. Have you experienced any pushback in terms of using those techniques? I speak from personal experience where, well, we're doing things agile now, why do we need to even go and do all that modelling, and where's the value from that? It's interesting.
There's nothing anywhere in any Agile books or anything that says don't model. In fact, Mike Cohn says model. Scott Ambler, how many of you are familiar with Scott Ambler? Scott Ambler has written a book on Agile modelling. Nowhere anywhere does somebody say you don't model when you're doing Agile. That's a complete myth. I have had people have pushback on modelling, and that's because they don't do it as a collaboration tool. So I think if you're going to say we're going to use modelling, we're going to use use cases, I think it's about making sure you're using the right model and for the right reasons. You know, I tend to use use cases, but not in every situation. Sometimes I find, probably not the right model to use, and maybe I'll just do a quick sketch of something. I'm big on rich pictures. How many people have tried rich pictures before? You've got to have a bit of artistic talent for rich pictures. I would actually write down and do a process using a rich picture, which is using little pictures to demote people's emotions and feelings about how they feel towards something. And sometimes I just hand-drawn them, literally hand-drawn them, photocopied them, and they've stood the test of time. So I think I had one situation where a lady I was working with was using use cases, and I was mentoring her at the time. And she came back and said, use cases don't work, they don't like it. And I said, well, can I have a look at your use cases? And she showed me this use case diagram. It was the most complex use case diagram I've ever seen. If any of you have used use cases, it had includes, extends, it had everything in there. Inheritance, polymorphism, it had every single possible part of the notation that you could ever wish to do. And I said, who was this diagram for? And she said, well, it was for me to collaborate with the customer. And I went, I can barely understand this, so they're not going to understand it. So I think KISS, keep it simple, stupid, is a great phrase to use when it comes to modelling. Keep it simple, don't overdo it, just enough. Think about who it's for. It's not about making yourself look clever by using all the notation that's available to you. It's about making sure you're getting the right collaboration through the model.
Thanks, Lynn. Can I have one more question that doesn't allow Lynn to have another presentation?
Okay, it should be fairly quick. We've BAs kind of incorporated into our teams, our Scrum teams, and one of the problems is when the BAs go and do, because Scrum is so kind of visible and ceremony based, when the BAs are doing other tasks like requirements gathering, there's a bit of a disconnect because the Scrum team don't know what the BAs are doing. And there's like, oh, can I approach them? Can I ask them to do something? They're sort of out of kilter. And we've had to bring a Kanban board in just for the BA so they can go, oh, we're in the office, we're at the office, we're doing this, we're doing that. But it's a constant battle because the developers want to go and just do it themselves.
Well, if they can, they should. To be
Hopefully
honest.
hopefully that answer is going to be shorter than the question. Yeah.
We really, I would just say, if you've got lots of BAs, make sure one of them is dedicated within the Agile team and the rest are doing the requirements and keep them within the Agile team, and they would have their own tasks on the board. But happy to talk to you after.
Okay, the one thing I picked up there was when you said book a course and you were talking about that, I immediately thought of a golf course rather than, but anyway. Everything, thanks Lynn, wonderful, thanks very much.